So this is my first time playing Elden Ring, and pretty much any Dark Soul game, to be honest. I played a little bit of 3, but not very much. I'm not very good. I wanted to highlight something here, which is kind of infuriating. We had a lot of this with our short time trying to play co-op in this game, which is really only limited to dungeons. This is one of the first ones, and basically the most noob area of the game. And we, granted, I'm not amazing at killing things, but every single time we tried this, we got invaded, and it was always by these really specialized, tweaked out fellas who seem to have weapons that we just weren't, familiar with, which were from most likely bosses or either late stages of the game or very specialized PvP orientated builds. And it was just infuriating, to be honest. So I'll just bring up one particular invader because I find this one particularly odd. Um, there's a couple of things that leap out here. So we go to run down this little passageway, and it's into the next piece of this little area of this first little dungeon. Basically, we've taken a few lives already just trying to get around here, which is frustrating because it uses resources. But the frustrating thing is that more so that you can't turn off PvP. So most new players out here are not going to be amazing at PvP, and there are definitely players out there that know this and are capitalizing on it. It's just constant. Every time we try to play together, we get wrecked by some super sweaty, 1,000+ hour guy with a specialized build who comes in and does some funny stuff. And a couple of instances, we also had people who had really odd builds or bits and pieces. I wasn't recording for one particular one that came in where the guy spawned into the world and then I died before I saw him. Which was really weird. But anyway, but this particular one I did record, and he. I'm not sure if this is normal. Maybe it is normal. I'm just not particularly experienced this game, but I just figured I'll put it out there. It's kind of odd because he spawns directly behind me. So as we're running down this corridor, you can see that suddenly this red summoning bit appears directly behind the main character, which as soon as my friend attacks him. So as soon as my friend hit him, he disconnected and was out of the server, and I'm stuck running around in circles trying to figure out how to PvP, which of course I've got no frame of reference for or no experience doing, so I'm well on my depth. I also noticed he kept on teleporting around, which might have just been the netcode being a bit rubbish, but anyway. But yeah, obviously he knows exactly what he's doing, he's just here farming noobs. And it's really frustrating because I think the bulk of players out there, beginner players, want to play with someone else, want to do the co-op experience, experience the game, and then get good at the game, and then face people in PvP when they know they're competent at least defending themselves. But there's not the opportunity to do that really. Like play solo for ages and grind and grind and grind. Sure, but I'd rather play it with a friend and learn and have fun. Like part of the advantage of having real world friends is that it is quite fun to actually play games with them. There's a reason why co-op games in general do have done particularly well in the past. Things like Left 4 Dead, for example, were exclusively co-op with no PvP, and that was a massive game. That's probably one of the defining games of that whole era. I know that PvP co-op is a little bit difficult to netcode sometimes and can lead to errors and everything else, and I'd love to see them try and see if they can make it into the rest of the game, even though it's not necessarily something that I expect them to do. I can't help but notice that the message boards for pretty much all platforms of this game are exploding with comments of saying, hey, why can't I play with my friends? I brought the game wanting to play with my friends, but every time we try and do something, a high-level experienced player with lots of, kitted out gear comes in, ruins our game for us. Why is there just not the option to turn that off while I learn so I can consent to joining into PvP when I'm skilled enough to actually be competent and not just be free farm? And, realistically, there's not anything that serious PvP players are getting out of farming noobs. The only people who are complaining about this are the people who are not particularly good or competent and either want to make themselves look better or alternatively want to be able to just keep farming low-level players who don't stand a chance and can't do anything against them. It's just a matter of, I guess, at the end of the day, yeah, okay, cool, get good at the game, right? But farming low-level noobs who can't defend themselves really isn't any show of skill or anything noteworthy. I'm sure there's plenty of YouTube compilations of farming noobs and trying to pretend that people are amazing, but the reality is I'm pretty sure any idiot who's got a couple of 100 hours in this game is probably quite capable of doing so and making a little video. It just seems like the whole mindset behind refusing to change or develop the game is that it would make it harder for low tier PvPers to actually farm kills without having to take on enemies who might potentially present a challenge or present a skill barrier that they might not be able to come and actually have a risk of losing an encounter. Now, yeah, obviously I'm no expert at this, but it's quite a wide agreement by the looks of it through all the forums that there's a lot of people who are new and want to have a chance to play with their friends and want to have some fun with their friends, and they have friends in real life they want to play with, and then there seems to be another category too. Like I get there is traditionalists who are like, oh yeah, I don't think you should be able to turn it off, and that's cool. They could have the option and just leave it on when they play through. That's not going to be hard. Um, but just make it so that people can't invade seems pretty reasonable for introducing players into the game, expanding the player base, allowing players to develop into competent people who will present a challenge for PvP. So you're not just making a montage of killing people who are completely defenseless. And it just seems like it would just be a really reasonable add into the game, wouldn't it? It is really hard to argue against in many regards. I mean, how do you argue against allowing players to consent to PvP? That's an interesting one, isn't it? And I've seen all kinds of interesting comments on the message boards as to like why players should not be allowed to consent out of PvPing higher level players and should not be allowed to have a chance to win. If anything, actually, a lot of the comments on the forum seem to be focused around either this is tradition or you should not be allowed to, these low level players should not be allowed the chance to defend themselves and win. I don't want to be facing players who could potentially kill me. So it's an interesting one, and it'll be interesting to see what they do in the future. I know this game might not change. We're probably going to keep mucking around with it in a month or two, and hopefully by then the player base will die down a bit because people will have ran out of low-level noobs to farm and will have to face actual PvPers, so they will have just decided that it's not worth their time and moved on.